I think a lot of people are thinking that wholesale and retail is a silver bullet that's going to fix everything. The DNA of a retail business is so different than the DNA of a direct-to-consumer business. The timelines, the way that you do things, just everything. If you're not prepared for that, it's adding in another division to your company that will completely alter the way you do things.
We're back. It's episode 4 of Down to Chat. We're about to be a quarter of the way through. It took us a couple episodes to kind of figure out how to turn the mics on and get the cameras running, but I think we're finally there. Cody's voice is crispy.
Yeah, I think we've identified the issue with the audio. Eli and our producer never let me know that the mic had to be plugged in, so that was an important learning that I've had this year.
It's been chaos. This week has been pretty chaotic in terms of just like work-wise. We launched some new kits for the holiday. Probably about to have one of our biggest days ever. Black Friday's coming. It's going to be slightly more chaotic. The CX team is crushing it. Our 3PL is going to be up all night packing. It's been hectic.
Yeah, it's been a good day. Definitely beyond expectations, and I really just can't wait to see what we do on Black Friday.
I think the interesting part about all of this, last episode we were talking about some like ways to increase AOV. If you didn't listen to that, take a peek, drop a review, share the review, win a good hour of chatting with Cody and I. Separate note.
Yeah, let's wrap that up. We've gotten a good amount of reviews. Let's do like one more week of that. So after this episode, maybe next episode, we will announce a winner. How's that sound?
Sounds perfect. Yeah, let's do it. And then the other.
So yeah, if this is your first one you're listening to, definitely, obviously, appreciate any shares, any feedback. Go back and listen to the other ones. But we are doing a little competition. So if you leave us a review, write out a review on Apple Podcasts, we are taking one person just at random and doing a, 2-on-1 mentor pass call. So free call with Eli and I where we can kind of answer any questions you have on growth, retention, talk about tendies, really whatever it is you want to talk about.
In this episode, we're talking a ton about increasing AOV. And one of the ways that brands increase AOV is with a mobile app from Tapcart. To actually convert shoppers, brands need a seamless UX experience and a mobile-first mindset. 47% of people expect your page to load in 2 seconds. 40% of users will bounce if your page doesn't load in 3. You lose 7% of conversions for every second your page load lags. A mobile app has a better customer experience, which leads to higher AOV and more brand loyalty. With features like instant page loading, one-click checkout, saved account info, native integrations, and push notifications, shoppers spend more time on the app, add more to their cart, and actually check out. With Tapcart, you can instantly turn your Shopify store into an epic mobile app with no coding required and a low upkeep revenue stream designed to convert mobile shoppers.
Relevant case studies. Reason Clothing launched an app for BFCM with Tapcart. The results? $120 higher AOV in-app versus desktop plus mobile web, 7.5 times higher orders per session, 42% increase in Black Friday, Cyber Monday revenue, and 2.4 times more orders in-app versus desktop and mobile app. Art of Tea tripled their conversion rate with a mobile app, 4.6 times higher average order value per session than mobile web. Here's what you can expect on average with a Tapcart mobile app metrics-wise. A 40% increase on average in conversion rate versus website, a 2.4 times increase in LTV on the app, and a 2.2 times revenue per session on app.
If you want to check out Tapcart, you can go to tapcart.com/down to chat. Tapcart.com/down to chat. Okay, let's get into it. So
yeah, let's do it.
Before we had a couple of topics we wanted to hit on. I just wanted to update one quick thing from last week that I guess is relevant to us. We were talking about ways to increase AOV, and we were talking about bundles and kits and sets and all that fun stuff. And if you're interested to kind of see our first foray into Black Friday, you can take a peek at our website, jonesroadbeauty.com. We launched some holiday kits, which is kind of basically this idea of taking, one limited edition or new product and mixing it with some of our best sellers and selling it as a kit. I think it's just, I think this is a phenomenal.
It hasn't disappointed us yet.
Yeah. It's a masterclass in just like not having to necessarily discount to get a big boost in sales, and strong AOV, strong LTV. And I think it's going to be a fun season. So if you want to see us practicing what we preach, you can take a peek at that. The rest of the testies, we will keep you updated on direct mail, landing pages, all the fun stuff we've spoken about test wise in the last few episodes.
Let me, because we've got one that I've got some data on or been using. Can I kind of chat about that one real quick with landing pages?
Go for it.
So, a few of the things we've talked about testing, we've talked about direct mail, we talked about kind of upcoming growth plans and TV, out of home. We obviously don't have any data on that yet because we haven't done it. We have our first out of home kicking off next week. So if you are in New York or Williamsburg area, definitely look out for that. Send me a picture if you do see it. So that should kick off in a week or two. Direct mail should be going out soon. So super excited to hear about that and keep you guys posted. But yeah, we've been using this landing page tool, Replo. So it's been amazing. We talked about it a few episodes back, but we've probably got like 5 or 6 pages up now using Replo. Really able to design them, use the designs that we've got in Figma, develop them super quickly, cheaply. So I'm pumped. I mean, I'm not going to say we've got crazy increases in conversion rate yet, but I think that will come with being able to just make these pages quicker, test things quicker. Do it without needing developers, just being a little bit more flexible with how we can do things. So I've been super impressed. Really, really happy with it. And I think it'll continue to be a really big part of what we do.
Love it. And then as far as, so this week, I guess we have a few topics on the docket, but number one that's been coming up, I guess it's been coming up for us, but also we've seen a lot of people in the industry chatting about, the never-ending argument about should we be D2C only? Should we be retail? Should we be omni-channel? There's always the hot takes of like, you can't build an X business without being in retail, or you could never control your brand if you're not solely D2C, and all the hot takes. So I wanted to briefly chat through that. Cody, thoughts on D2C versus retail? Owned stores, Sephora's. Give us the tea.
I have thoughts. I have many. They are evolving by the day. But why don't we hear yours first? I'm actually curious yours. I think we align on most things here, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I think that any kind of hot take across everything has been proven consistently to be unfounded and bullshit. I think there are brands every which way that can prove, you can build to a couple 100 million D2C only. You can build, $1 billion brand just in retail, and vice versa. I think most best practices are bullshit. And I think it really depends on what your vision is for the brand you're building, what your vision is for your exit. I think that across almost every business I've been in up until Jones, we either started D2C and went into retail, or started retail, went to D2C. Like I've seen both sides of that. And both of those businesses failed or succeeded for reasons entirely outside of the D2C versus retail. Mm-hmm. So that's my broader take is like, if you're going to fail, it's probably not going to be didn't go to retail fast enough, or didn't.
So if you're going to fail no matter what. Do you believe that if you're going to succeed, you're going to succeed regardless of the channel or not?
I mean, we've seen in our space, we've definitely seen, sole D2C brands. Like we chatted about this briefly the other day about Glossier hitting crazy numbers, being in D2C only for the first part, and even, in their own stores. So I think we've seen brands kind of stick to the D2C mantra and crush it. And we've definitely seen brands that are in every retail store and maybe even go spread too thin in retail and then can't keep up D2C. So, I mean, I think it's part of you can crush omni-channel, you can crush D2C, you can crush retail. I don't know that there's any sort of intense correlation there.
Yeah, I hear you. I think like everything, it depends. I know that's the most boring answer, but that's why we're talking about it on a podcast instead of Twitter, so we can actually provide some of the context around it. And as someone who my natural tendency can be to be pretty stubborn, I'm always trying to like challenge my assumptions, and I think that's never more true than right now, because if we think about a lot of the direct to consumer assumptions, you're cutting out the middleman, so it's cheaper, the profit margins are better, you can control the brand better, all of that. I don't necessarily know if a lot of those are true. It's definitely not cheaper. For most brands, whatever you save in margin, you give up in margin to Zuckerberg, So whatever you're not paying a retailer, you're really paying, Zuckerberg. And at scale that you're giving up more. I also think it depends. Some verticals, some categories, you absolutely have to go wholesale. You don't have a choice. Food and beverage, you have to. Mattresses, furniture, maybe you don't have to, but I mean, that's certainly a challenge, paying for shipping and figuring out logistics for something like that. So I think that you definitely have to. I think we are fortunate that we are in one of those categories where we're probably as well positioned as we can be in terms of good average order value for being able to, drive scale on paid acquisition. Beauty's is known to have solid margins. We have, fortunate ability to have an owned audience through, Bobby's fame, as well as, earned media through it. There's an LTV component in there. So I think there are certain verticals where it makes sense to want to stay direct consumer as much as possible or completely. And then I think there are some that doesn't make sense. Like I know Ridge Wallets, they're a very successful brand, and I think that they're in some retailers, and I think that's something that they're starting to do now. But at least when I first became aware of them, they really weren't in any. And again, they have a lot of those kind of same components, not all of them. They're definitely savvy operators, but it seems like solid margins, solid average order value, probably not the most retention built in there and whatnot, but it's not that expensive to ship a wallet across the country. But versus if you're shipping a case of soda, like you can't be profitable doing that.
Okay, a little devil's advocate. So if we were to launch in every single, I don't know, Sephora tomorrow, would it be possible? Like, do you think that's a possibility to 10x our business? And if so, like, what's the downside?
Well, so I think that's the other part, not to, completely change your not answer your question, but it's like, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do and over what time frame? What kind of business do you want to run? I know brands that run their own logistics internally versus not, and it's not always a cost decision. Sometimes it's a what headaches do I want? What are the challenges that I'm okay with putting up with? Do I want to deal with retailers? Do I want to take the volatility of Facebook ads and live and die by that? And there's no right answer. I think there's pros and cons to everything.
Yeah, I think that's valid. I think when people think about retail, it's just like, oh, POs come in overnight, and now my business is $1 billion business, and it's not the case. Like I've spoken to brands in the past that have like literally created or rented a new facility to produce product based on a Walmart PO, and then 6 months later Walmart pulled out, or Costco or whatever. Like it's volatile as well, and you can kind of, if you don't prove velocities, you won't necessarily last there. I think there have been, especially in the beverage universe that I come from, there have been brands that have expanded too quickly into retail and then not, they weren't able to kind of continue growing and went out of business. So it's risky both ways. I think I resonate with depends what kind of business you want to grow into. Do you want to hire a 40-person sales team to run after stores and stock shelves? Do you want to kind of focus on the Facebook ads? But I mean, regardless, I think, when you think about brand, there's obviously some sort of help of having everything internal and being able to kind of touch every part of the customer journey and all the kind of cliches that people talk about as far as direct to consumer. I think we've also seen, and this, I guess, a great segue into, kind of some of the brands that we've seen that have been phenomenal from a marketing perspective, but then, when it comes to opening up retail stores, they're hemorrhaging left and right. And then you're looking at like the publicly traded brands like the Allbirds, and, that have had tremendous amount of growth, and they haven't necessarily been able to kind of keep up with it. And we were chatting about prior to the clicking of record. That was a weird way of saying prior to starting the podcast. But we were talking about just like in general, how like, not having a great strategy when it comes to growth doesn't mean you're a shit organization when it comes to like brand and marketing and all that. Thoughts?
That was a lot. I think my biggest issue that I see is like, it was like DTC, DTC, DTC. And now it's like, you got to go retail. Like DTC is dead. If you don't go retail, you're dead. And my concern is that I think for most companies, there should be some retail or wholesale component. And I think that, when people say retail, I think they're assuming wholesale, but retail can be owned retail, brick and mortar stores. I don't know if I see enough of that being done. I think that's something I'd like to see more of. I'd like to see it be done more strategically. I mean, there are so many brands that, to me, that's direct to consumer. I don't know how direct to consumer just became online.
Yeah.
Is Lululemon sold in any wholesale? Like, to me, Lululemon is the best direct to consumer brand. Is James Purse sold in any wholesale?
I think that James Purse is sold in wholesale, but Lululemon, I don't believe it is. I think Lululemon is just through direct consumer, so they're standalone stores, and
they crush it. They're profitable. They have an extremely strong brand. They have high pricing power, very loyal audience and consumer, publicly traded. I actually don't know if they're profitable. I am actually just guessing and assuming that. So I could, be totally called out on that. But like, it shows it can be done,
Yeah. Every time I think about profitability, I think about the WeWork story with Adam Newman on the stage at TechCrunch Disrupt in like 2016 or 2018, when they're like, "You're not profitable." And he's like, "Well, it's just a button I can press. Whenever I decide I want to be profitable, I'll be profitable." And I thought that was like a masterclass in in avoiding the question and bullshitting, but also it's very much what we think about, in terms of profitability. Like if a brand at that scale, at a at a Lulu or at an Allbirds or whatever it is, if they were to kind of cut all growth, like all large, crazy growth initiatives, obviously continue doing what they're doing on the ads, but cut opening 50 new stores a year and all that, like, would they immediately become profitable? But also, like, is that what the public markets want? Like,
I think, I think it is what the public markets want. I think it's proven that it's not true. I think that that's the case in SaaS, and that's why venture capital has done so well in SaaS, is because more or less you can get to profitability later and figure it out later. And those giant disruptors of companies like Uber, and I know WeWork is not SaaS, but like, if you look at, different SaaS companies, Figma, exactly.
Ligma.
You can definitely get, that's another great one, that you can definitely get to profitability later, but there are just fundamental differences in how those operate. The scale is unmatched of those. The TAMS is huge. The gross margins are great. You have the biggest differences when you acquire a customer in a consumer product. After the first purchase, they're worth significantly less to you. In SaaS, they're actually worth more and more to you over time. Okay. So I think that there's just different fundamentals in play there, versus in consumer, it's not. In fact, everything is more expensive. It's just the cost to acquire a customer just skyrockets and balloons. You're always dealing with marginal shipping costs pretty much every time. So I think you have to go slower, profit first mentality. So I think even if you look at a lot of these brands, right, Glossier, Warby Parker, Allbirds, opening up their own stores, you can look at them and say that's a terrible idea, that brands shouldn't open up their own stores, and it's not profitable, and the OpEx is just super high. But it's also, if you look at how many stores that they've opened, just mind-blowing how much they've put into the stores, but also how many they've opened, because they've raised so much money from venture capital that they had to do something to show growth, and profitability became a focus later and later on. So I really think a lot of this stuff is problems with applying, venture capital to, as you would a SaaS company, to a consumer brand. But I think if you open slowly, and there are brands out there like that are opening, not forcing growth and opening slowly, and maybe instead of opening 15 stores a year, you open 2. I think that that's a super reasonable way to go about expanding. And again, it could be the same thing wholesale. Instead of going into, all of the Sephoras, maybe you pick and you go into 5 Nordstroms at a time or something like that. My biggest concern I want to get back to is, I think a lot of people are thinking that wholesale and retail is a silver bullet that's going to fix everything. And kind of like you mentioned before, it's not the case. There are operational challenges that completely come with that. The DNA of a retail business is so different than the DNA of a direct-to-consumer business. The timelines, the way that you do things, just everything. And I think you can get, if you're not prepared for that, like, it's adding in another division to your company that is just will completely alter the way you do things.
Yeah, I think the interesting part about the CPG side of thing versus SaaS is that when you talk to founders of CPG brands that have grown super quickly, and the question, are you profitable? And it's always like, no, we're not. And you're like, okay, but how do you plan on reaching profitability? And it's always like, well, like it's economies of scale, and if we can scale production, et cetera. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's also like economies of scale can, and maybe I'm talking out of my ass, so correct me if you're like, well, I'm an ops guy and it's totally false and that's not how it goes. But from my understanding in CPG, especially in the food and beverage space, it's like if you're a soda company and you're acquired by Pepsi, they'll obviously produce at a larger quantity and can cut savings, but they're not automatically going to kind of increase your contribution margin by like 60%, right?
So that's what I mean. They can, right? Like, and I'm talking about it in my ask here too, but they can probably save you a few points, but it's not going to be like go from in the red to in the black, most likely.
Should we update the name of the podcast from like down to chat to like talking from our ass?
Talking from our ass. I love that.
I just hope I hope we don't get canceled. I mean, I guess I have some knowledge from being on the consumer side of things in terms of margin, but it's usually pretty shit, especially when products are expensive to ship, and you're not gonna like kind of like exit at a crazy hemorrhaging funds and then all of a sudden turn it around and become the most profitable business in the world. And I think most of them are just trying to get to a point where they're enough of a threat to a larger company that Coke is like, I don't give a shit if you're profitable, I just need to get you out of my face, buy you and kill you. And we see that happen, especially in
that's
beverage.
what I mean. It's the game you're trying to play. You have to decide the game that you're trying to play. Are you trying to get acquired? Who are you trying to get acquired by? And like, what's the best strategic path forward for that? And I think if you're trying to hold or you're trying to get acquired, cash flow or positive earnings are so much more important than not. So regardless of what you do, it's about slow, sustained, steady growth and hopefully trying to be profitable along the way.
I'd say in this economy more than ever, when people are kind of like, raised around last year and are realizing that their valuation, either they're going to have a down round or they're going to struggle to raise. I think it's a difficult climate to raise money. But I think in general, the idea of let me build a company that'll be enough of a pain in the ass to the incumbents so they'll buy me to shut me down is some real American shit. That's like made in America shit. It's pretty iconic if we're being real.
Yeah. I mean, long story short, it's probably important for some brands. It's necessary. Most brands, it's super important. I think definitely a whole owned versus wholesale debate is probably worthwhile because there's pros and cons of each. But just don't think it's going to be a silver bullet and fix real problems that you're having in your business.
Gotcha.
What's next?
What's next? Gosh. What's next is right. So, in real My First Million fashion, you have some really dumb business ideas and really genius business ideas, or that's how you labeled it.
And you're going to tell me which one is which.
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about, I always just kind of like coming up with ideas and thinking of them, and kind of sometimes they come to me, just like, oh, what are we struggling with? What would I love?
You had the landing page guide.
Yeah. I can chat about that. Maybe if anyone wants to listen and give me some feedback. I bought the domain. I think it's thelandingpageguide.com. Not really sure what I.
You don't have to do anything with it. All you have to do is buy a domain. That's usually.
Oh yeah, just. I know someone was like, "How do you have time to do more projects?" I was like, "Sir, do you not know? Like most people that buy domains, like nothing happens." I'm not a hoarder though. This is like the first one I own. I don't know. I want to do something. I've been collecting a lot. I've been collecting a lot of landing pages just for personal use and inspiration, and I just love the reason it really interests me. I love looking at things in like patterns and parts, and not like individual tactics, but I like looking at like what are the principles of these pages that have, and kind of like like seeing like what's popular and whatnot. So I would love to do something where I kind of break it down, and I don't know if this is video. I don't know if it's just like written like an ebook format, but I'd love to do something where I can do kind of like an educational guide on it. Maybe where I'm like drawing over like the parts I like and kind of like writing and what I like. So I'm open to anything. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, you've definitely created a little space for yourself as the landing page guru. So I think there's
second to Sharma. Sharma's the landing page guy.
Second to the hooks master. But I think I mean, I think there's a ton of growth that people in our space have seen from creating great landing pages. So as a non-growth guy, just guessing, I think that can be very valuable for folks. Yeah, that's
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So that was one. Whenever I get some time, I'll probably do that. Other idea. This is probably the one that I think is stupid. Tell me what you think. Outsourced research. I love, and I think it's super important for people to do research for really any type of marketing. Look at all of their, customer reviews, comments on ads, just coming up with ad angles, different hooks, different messaging, website copy, landing pages, all that kind of stuff. I happen to also be really, really fucking busy right now. And I kind of feel a little bit out of touch. And I feel like, I wish I had more time to do it, but I currently don't, and I can have somebody on my team do it. But like, for example, we're actually working with Nick. We're actually getting a landing page done from hooks. I just wanted to kind of try it out, see it, have it built in Replo, and then be able to like have all these sections that we can kind of then test and create on our own. And so I was just thinking about it going through the process. Like, I think Hooks is an outstanding business, and it's like such a great idea, and just such a need in the market, and like who better to offer it than him. So definitely shout out to Nick. But I was like, what if you just took the research component? Because that's kind of like their first phase, is they really dive in and they really try to get to know your customers, but like just kind of like debundled that and offered that as a service to brands. And I don't know what it would look like. Maybe they get on calls with people and they summarize them. And I don't mean like a big brand, like focus group, Nielsen type thing. I mean more of like a direct to consumer, scrappy, like, hey, like we analyzed your reviews. We put it in a word chart. We did some AI stuff. Here's what your customers are saying.
So what I think is super interesting about the space is that, like you alluded to, there's like the big brand Nielsen type of like, like a larger brand discovery, whatever. We one of the former companies I was at, we did that, and it's like 50 to 75K in 2 months,
Yeah.
and it's super fluffy and hundreds of decks and
Do you
a
even
lot
want,
of
like, how valuable is that?
It's more of like, do your customers use an Android or an iPhone than like, can you tell me what they absolutely hate about your product versus what they absolutely love? And I think that's
what I want. I want like copy angles. Maybe you're hiring a copywriter who just does research. Like, that's part of copy.
I think I think that you started off this saying this might be a really dumb idea. I definitely don't think it's a dumb idea.
And Cody, you're right.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very, very interesting niche, just because, when you think about the high end of the market, it's 50 or 75 grand and it's 2 months. And the low end of the market is like hiring somebody on Upwork or Fiverr for like $10, and they just kind of like scour your things and put together like a kind of janky, one pager. I think the DTC thing is interesting because ultimately, exactly what you want to see, right? It's like, go through my 25,000 reviews and or at least like the ones that have more than X words, go through my my NPS scores, look at my ads on the comments. What you're looking for is not necessarily like big brain energy. It's more so like, it takes
aggregating
a lot of time.
data.
Yeah.
Kind of aggregating data, looking for trends and themes.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. I think the conversation is always like, most brands that you talk to are like just continuing to test and test and test, and they never get to this like inflection point of, why don't I stop testing and actually listen to what my customers are saying? I think in our case at Jones, it's like, we have NPS. It's all in one place. It's easy to just hop in and search keywords, and it's like it's slightly lower of a lift than maybe at a company that's all discombobulated and all over the place. But I think that there's two things. First of all, it's very rare to find somebody that's like doing nothing at your company and has like 2 weeks to just go all in on it, and take the time. And B, I do think it takes a specific skill set of somebody that really, really enjoys diving into the data and enjoys like kind of pulling pieces apart. I think the third thing I'd say is like, it's very important to talk to customers as well. So the question is like, how can you take this $50,000 offering and really dumb it down to something that's 4 or 5, but it feels really compelling enough to solve for, I don't need like a 50-page brand deck. I need like something specifically catered towards like, what are great copy angles, like you're saying. I think it's a good idea. Down to Chat is brought to you by Peel Insights. I'm a big retention guy. Cody knows that, big growth guy. And just wanted to quickly talk about some of the ways that we use Peel on the LTV side. So, Cody, do you want to chat about cohorts?
Yeah, I mean, LTV, even on a non-retention side, is pretty much the foundation of everything we do. So we're always looking at lifetime value, which is kind of the value that we get from either a customer or a cohort. And Peel has so many great ways to visualize it. But a cohort is essentially a fancy word for a group of customers. So most commonly, we look at cohorts by month. So all of the customers that we've acquired in any given month, and then how are we retaining them, and how's their value progressing over time. And the amazing thing with Peel is you can segment that by pretty much anything you'd want to. So Eli and I are looking at that all of the time in terms of different customer journeys, different products, different messages. So we can really understand what types of customers are the best for us to focus on, both on an acquisition standpoint as well as what retention practices are actually working for us. Eli, what are some of kind of the ways that you use LTV and some things you like to look at yourself?
Yeah, so some great examples, one that we shared last time about shade matching, but the other kind of super interesting one that I guess is both relevant on the growth side and on the retention side is we talk about mascara being a very high LTV purchase. Customers that hop in on a mascara end up spending almost double of what, some of the other products that people come in on. So both from a growth perspective, Cody thinking about the ads, as well as me from a experience perspective as to like what products should we be pushing to our customers? What products should we be optimizing for an email, SMS, etc. That's something we learned entirely from Peel.
Yeah, there's really so much. I mean, pretty much any decision that you're making, any marketing initiative, whether it comes down to understanding how is a TikTok versus Facebook customer, what's the value that you get both of them, and do you have to set different CPA targets for them? I use it to kind of do forecasting for the coming year by kind of predicting and forecasting, revenue that we're going to get from repeat customers, which is the most stable kind of cohort that you can get. That's all done through Peel. It's pretty much everything. So it's definitely a tool and some analysis that we wouldn't be able to run our business without.
And some things that we'll talk about in future episodes, like how do you increase LTV? At the moment, we're covering kind of like how to check out LTV and how to see what cohorts are doing better than others, but obviously improving CX, loyalty programs, referrals, communications with customers, all that fun stuff we'll talk about over the next couple episodes. But for now, if you'd like to check out Peel, it's peelinsights.com and tell them we sent you.
Okay. All right. That was a good one. So I'm excited to hear what you think about this one. Okay.
Oh, gosh.
So this other one, this other one.
Wait, is this the good one?
I think so.
Okay.
It's a little bit more of a lofty one. So, we're all familiar with attribution tools. We're all familiar with insights tools. Shout out to Peel Insights for being an amazing sponsor. We use it literally every day.
Is it the next stage? Is it the the new age?
Yeah. So one thing I've been spending a ton of time recently doing is forecasting, and I think everyone's got a little different of a forecasting model, but the majority of the data is being pulled from Peel Insights, from our Insights tool, and then putting it into a model in Excel, right? And then it's putting into that model that I've gotten from somebody else. I'm definitely not smart enough to do my own. I'm sure some people are doing it, but you're starting with cohort data and you're trying to understand, here's how many customers we acquired, here's what percentages percent of them return in any given month over a different time period. Oh, and then here's how much revenue we are expecting to get from them. That's kind of like, for the next year, that's kind of number one. And then you kind of bake in your acquisition assumptions. Okay, here's how much I want to spend. Here's at what AMER. So, meaning how much revenue I think we'll get from them. And there's a lot of guessing and assumptions that goes into that. This is like, how I would do like and I have done a forecast for like growth and marketing. Like we have like a demand planner who has a completely different model for doing hers. But I think I'm kind of just talking about, my side, and there's a lot of assumptions that go into it. And one thing that I believe and rely on for doing Facebook ads is that I'm not better than AI. I'm not better than, machine learning. I don't really know the difference between the two, but I'm not better and smarter than the computer. So I want the computer to make as many decisions for me as I can. And I feel like I don't really trust myself to make some of these decisions because there are so many factors. And I know that forecasting is not about being perfect or right. It's about, being close as you can and then learning from it over time and understanding where you're wrong. But why is there not a system that, first of all, I don't have to actually input the model and build the spreadsheet and go pull the data. Why can't I just have the forecasting done in a template? You know what I mean? Or in one of the tools that we use. And also, why isn't there something that uses AI to do the forecasting that has all of our data, that can build models, can also, like right now, like if I wanted to like assume that our returning customer revenue is going to be higher as like a percentage in November, now I have to put that in manually. If you have a few years of data, don't you think like AI would be able to kind of plug that stuff in for you? And then also, if I want to change our forecast as we go over time, I have to, keep inputting new data. Like that should be something that should just automatically happen and kind of adjust in real time, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. I think as you're saying this, a couple of things that I'm thinking of is like there are a ton of inputs that can change the output, right? It's like
a lot of inputs.
Yeah, well, I think it's a lot of them are like inputs from our end, right? Like the AOV or the returning customer rate or the cohorts or that, but there's also more broadly, right? Like the war in Ukraine, the geopolitical events.
100%.
So
which is, I think, should be factored into this AI.
Correct. So I think that's why there's a differentiation between like, hey, I have a great Excel algorithm or a great formula versus like AI that's looking at more than just like your business holistically, but looking at the way other businesses are performing and the way you've like your historicals over the last year.
Inflation
like
index. So
exactly.
Consumer confidence index, inflation.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it makes a ton of sense. I feel like there's probably kind of like forecasting tools out there, but probably nothing that goes as broad as like using AI to look at like, macro and micro and think about like you're saying inflation. Like that makes a big difference. Like if the Fed drops whatever rate, like people are spending less aggressively, or if the unemployment ratings, like I think all of that affects macro trends. And then also, I guess the other thing is like so much of it really is historical, right? Like the way you've done last year will definitely affect, meaning like if your business has doubled this year, you might see double, but it definitely like taking historicals into account. Do you see this as like I guess it's a standalone product, right? It's not a formula.
So. I think it's a standalone product. I think it's an AI product. I mean, it would have to. I have no knowledge about what it takes to build something like this, and what's even possible. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely AI tools for like predicting LTV and stuff like that. So there's definitely something that can be done, and the technology exists. But I think kind of factoring in the cohort stuff and then layering on everything that we talked about, I think that would be great. Yeah, I see it as a standalone product, but I mean, if it can get you this level, a decent level of accuracy and help you make better decisions in your business, and then compare forecast versus actuals over time and have it automatically adjust. It's a high ticket thing. I mean, people pay shit like 30 to 50 to 100 grand for attribution and analytics tools, like, and those don't do any of this for you. Like people, I think
wait until people find out what brands pay for influencer platforms like Grin.
Oof, how much? It's like
40K? 50 to 80. I mean, we got quoted 85K. 85? Not here, but at a former job. Yeah, it was like, I was like, wow, that is aggressive. And just wait till people find out what people are paying for reviews through Yotpo. So, I mean, I think there's the budget's there. You know what the funny part about you saying is like, I'm not sure what it takes to buy this, is that like, to create this, is that like the internet is such a lovely place that if you just put an idea out in the universe, you'll have like 37 people saying like, this is stupid because this is what it takes to build it. Or like, I've done this and here's how I would do it. So that's the beauty of giving ideas and putting it into the internet, into the
I mean, I know enough that I don't even know the difference between AI and machine learning, no matter how many times I've had it explained to me. I just know that this is a problem that I have as a CMO, and if someone wants to solve it for me, I will gladly
pay them the big bucks.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was gonna say I'll invest, but sure, I'll solve it. And if it exists, if I'm just an idiot and this exists, please let me know.
Please comment. He's an idiot. It exists.
Yes, just comment. Tweet at me at Cody Ploff. You are an idiot.
Would that be the first time anyone wrote that?
No, probably not.
Yeah, I feel like I've been bullied on the internet this week. So I mean, hey, okay, this is a bonus topic that's been on the bonus topic list for the last 3 episodes, but I think it's It's a fun one going into Black Friday. I want you to talk about how you screwed up last year, and then I talk about how I would do things
I
differently.
wouldn't say I screwed up. I would say the team collectively kind of jumped in and saved the day is kind of how I would. Actually, fine, I did screw up. I'll be very humble, Eli. I sold too many products that day. I'm totally
this guy. He can't stop selling. No, but I think talking about how we handled last year, and then talk about how I think I was. Is it possible that you pinged me on the tail end of it?
I did.
I was in a hot tub in Tulum. That's the true story. I was in a hot tub in Tulum right before I start. It was a week between my last job and my new job.
I didn't know. I think it was before that. I think we had a different fuck up. That was a different one. I'm trying to remember what that one was. Because no, this was like well before you started, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it should be because I started in March.
I started in like February. Yeah, March. Yeah. So this was Black Friday, but I do think I actually reached out to you.
What was the drill?
So the situation
was oversold.
Yeah, last Black Friday was at the time our best day ever. We didn't want to just do a discount, so we sold a set of mini Miracle Bombs, custom set where people can pick their shades. And we sold out of them. But the problem was, so when people buy these like custom sets on our site, it's not actually fulfilled as a set. It's actually fulfilled as individual SKUs. So we don't have to pay, pick and pack and stuff like that. Because what happens is when you do, a kit, that's a SKU, and you have to have your 3PL kit that, and then you pay a kitting cost, and that's a SKU. And when you have 3 shades and people are picking them, there's an almost endless number of variations. So you can't possibly kit all of those. So that's kind of the functionality that we built out, and we love it. So we can raise AOV, offer these cool things, but it's
so on the back end. It just comes through to 3PL as 3 products,
individual products, and then we have like a script that applies a discount to it. And so there was a delay. We didn't have NetSuite as an ERP at the time, so we had a delay between Shopify and our 3PL. And usually what we would do is we would hold on to a certain number of safety stock. I guess that's probably pretty common, right? Mm-hmm. What's normal for most brands? Are they hold on to like 50, 100 of each SKU?
I mean, it's usually a percentage of inventory. Meaning, if they have 10,000, they might hold on to 200, 300. It also like depends on it's probably a better mathematical equation that the ops people can chime in on, but it's probably a percentage of based on your average return rate, and based on your like shipping damages and all that fun stuff, because if there's more than just like basic overselling. But yeah I don't think we were that scientific about it, which is maybe the issue. But so we sold out pretty quickly. First day we sold out, at least from a bunch of the SKUs. But what happened was we oversold by a few hundred, and the reason we did that was in the time that we have that delay, let's say it was an hour delay. I think it's longer, but let's say it's an hour delay. With our normal traffic, we would normally sell 15 of them. So 50, extra we thought was plenty. But because we were selling so much, I think we oversold in that time period by a few hundred. And these were things that were highly demanded. If we were to ever do it again, I still think there would be high demand for it. I see in our Facebook group on ads, pretty much all of the comments. Speaking of, I was, at our ad shoot the other day, we were looking at some comments just to get some ideas for hooks, and like had to scroll past 10 people asking for these minis this year. So if we were to ever do it again, it would be exciting. But yeah, so that being said, we sold out a ton of them, and people were really excited to get them. So this was pre-Eli, had no director of CX. Someone on the team at the time was like, oh, we'll just cancel the orders. And I was like, absolutely not. We will not cancel the orders. Like, imagine being at a company and you bought something that was limited edition, and without even hearing from anybody else, you just got a notification that your order has been canceled. It's canceled. Like, I would be fucking pissed, wouldn't you? I'd be frustrated for sure if there was no background, if it was just like your order's canceled.
Such a shitty experience. I feel like.
So
I think we talked about it, trying to figure out a few different things, and after I literally called Eli. I talked to. Actually, I don't know. Joanne hadn't started either, but I was just like, what would Eli do? So I think I called Eli, and he gave me, I was just like, hey, here's my thoughts. Like, what do you think? And I think what we landed on, and what I landed on was give people a few different options. I don't know if this is something I learned kind of like when I did sales. Is like if you tell somebody what to do, it's kind of like people don't want to be told what to do. People also don't completely want the decision. They want you to make the decision for them, but they want to feel like
they want to know that it was right. They want to know that it was a choice.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, all right, let's give people a choice. So it was either we canceled the entire order. That was kind of the last thing we offered, but canceled the entire order. You know, if they were just like, fuck it, I only wanted if I could get the whole thing in these shades. We could short ship it, which means if it was a set of 3 and one was out of stock, we could just ship them 2 and refund the rest. Or we could offer them a full size of that shade. So let's say you ordered, 2 of them, one was out of stock. We'll send you the 2 that are in stock. We'll short ship that, and then we'll also give you a full size of that shade. And so we gave people the option, because again, want to give people the option. We wanted to do more than we had to, go a little bit above and beyond. And yes, people really wanted the minis, but if you can't get that, I wouldn't be that upset about getting a full size, in that shade. And so most people picked that one. They picked option 3 of getting the full size. Some people picked option 2. Very few people asked to refund the whole thing. And you'll know more than me, but I think most people were happy with it. I think most people were pretty happy with it. Turned that into a good.
Yeah. I mean, I've only seen positive feedback. I think the authenticity piece is important, like being like, this was totally a mistake, we didn't mean to do it, versus like just canceling makes you seem like a bad brand, that you're like, oh, you just don't care. Reaching out as a person and saying like, hey, this is kind of nuts, but we thought this would last for 3 days and it's sold out in 12 hours. So like, this is crazy. But we want to make it right is super important. When I think this is probably a good note to end on, just like a few things that I would do today. Like this episode will come out a couple of days before Black Friday. These are things you can do.
I was going to ask you if we oversell something.
Yeah.
Next weekend,
these are things you can do. These are things you can do like in 5 minutes. And you should, if you haven't implemented yet. Plain text emails are your friend. I think it's
we did one. Yeah. That came from it.
Never sleep on that as an apology that's authentic.
Well, hold on. I also actually learned something really good from you. This is super simple, but it makes so much sense. Have it come from the person, not the brand. Why is that?
Yeah. I think that the difficulty, so I found this out as a customer, like I'm pretty obnoxious. And whenever an email comes from like the brand saying, we are so sorry, we oversold, it just feels corporate and gross, versus like when it's like, hey, I'm Eli, director of CX. I had an awful day because I feel horrible about this. And it's like, I know you guys have been, the biggest stands for this brand, and I want to make this right. I think it's harder to be mad at Eli than to be mad at Jones Road. And also it just feels more personal and it feels like you're taking accountability, right? Like accountability is such an important piece here.
At a person. And I think that's just like, it's so simple, but it's so brilliant.
Yeah. It's hard to be, I mean, obviously, like I'm always mad at a person when they're like, I wish I could, but I can't. And I'm like, you're just reading a script. But if it's a person that's like genuinely putting themselves out there and saying like, this is on me, I screwed up, here's how I want to fix it for you. And if it feels authentic, I think it's spot on, and it works. I think, so a couple of things, plain text from you, the things you can do aside from, if you don't oversell, everything goes fine and dandy, just in general, things to think about. This can take you 3 minutes, but set up an email that goes post-purchase that says, thanks for purchasing on our Black Friday sale. Shit's busy. It might take an extra 2 or 3 days to process. And everyone's like, well, customers know it's Black Friday, but it's still better when you let them know beforehand. And there aren't many brands that are doing it, and it puts you, way above and beyond the rest. Now, if you have more time and you have dev teams that can handle like maybe putting it in the cart, add to cart, slide cart, or maybe putting a banner on your website, or like a bunch of other ways when you're definitely going to take an extra week or an extra 4 days or an extra 6 days. I mean, everyone's in the same boat, right? Your 3PL is not just fulfilling your things. They're fulfilling 5 to 10 to 30, 40 other brands that are all selling a lot this season. So they didn't hire an extra 10,000 people. They maybe brought on an extra 30 or 40% capacity. Super important to be upfront and let people know. When we would let people know it can take an extra 7 days and it arrived in 4, it was just like, oh wow, they're pretty fast. So
For sure.
setting expectations, plain
Definitely.
text emails. And if you oversell, just think about what would you want as a customer. If you have the funds for it and the budget for it, and you're like, hey, I'm going to send them a full size instead of a mini, you can also get creative with it and say, I'd be happy to give you this, and the value is slightly higher. Or if somebody, if this happened, knock on wood that it doesn't, but if it did, it's like if somebody has spent $3,000 with the brand, we might say like, hey, I'll send you a full size, and I'll also send you some of those Cadence containers so you can make your own minis, right?
Oh,
So it's
I
like
love
getting
that.
creative. It's like getting creative as to like, we can get you as close to that as physically possible. And it's going to cost us more money, but we care about you as a customer, versus like if it's somebody's first time order, maybe we don't have to spend an extra $35 on the Cadence and we can just figure something else out, but
I
be
love
open
that.
to getting outside the box.
I love that. That's smart. So maybe you should get working on some of that stuff in case we sell out again this year.
I know. I've been like, I hope we put enough aside. But this year we have NetSuite, so we're in the big leagues, which is kind of updating in real time. But also, yeah, I mean, we're going to sell a ton of it, and we obviously have to, it's kind of a balance between like, we want to sell and sell as much as we can and make a lot of money, but also like if 50 of them get lost in the mail, which is quite possible in holiday season, we need to have the wherewithal to replace them. So it's exciting, but I think it's like these tiny little things of just being a person and thinking about like, what would you expect a brand to do for you? Like I remember last year, this is like one of the brands that I idolized in the D2C space. Like I thought they were crushing and doing everything right. I ordered something and it went to Guam. Like it literally took like a round trip around the world. It started in California, went to Guam, went to like a couple of other places, and it was like 3 weeks later and I still hadn't gotten it, and they were just like the same canned response over and over, like, it's on the way. As long as it's on the way, there's nothing we can do. And I was like, the whole order was $46, and it was just like, that's a fun way to get disappointed in a brand and never purchase again. Now, is it their problem that it got lost in shipment? No, but like, is there a better strategy than just saying hang tight? I think so.
They should have shipping insurance, probably.
They probably should have. They probably should have added shipping insurance. But also, we keep joking about shipping insurance, and people will be like, "Oh, I love shipping insurance too." And then now I get DMs about like, "I saw you love shipping insurance. What do you think I should do about X, Y, and Z?"
Yeah. Oh, because So just
Sarcasm on the
context.
internet is not.
Yeah. Eli hates shipping insurance, so I like just teasing him about loving shipping insurance online. Like I talked about improving something online, like just like spending more on ads and doing better. And Eli said something, and I was like, yeah. And the biggest unlock was adding shipping insurance. And then like I got like 5 DMs questions about it. That's so funny.
I got like DMs saying
People
like,
thought it
how
was
big was the unlock, and like, would you recommend they try it? And I just sent back like, he was kidding. And then just
You should have told them that we hired a consultancy to help analyze the data, and you highly recommend Ligma Ventures.
Did you see, just as a final note, Ligma and Johnson were rehired? I thought that was a very noble move.
Eli totally fucked up by letting them go. All right, final note. What are your thoughts on Twitter right now? Where do you stand in terms of how's Elon doing? How are you bullish on it or not?
I am very not bullish on it short term. I think long term it'll happen. It'll just be a different company. I think a lot of the general tech scene has been, a place where people get taken care of. I'm a very, very, very big proponent of people feeling respected and motivated in a company. I think every single employee there is like, I might get fired tomorrow. The guy that tweeted like, you don't know what you're talking about, and got fired on Twitter. Like it's a little chaotic for me. I'm not bullish on it short term, just because like letting go of 60% of the team, whether or not you have an incredible, like you lean up, and it has to make sense from a bottom line, right? You buy a company that's way overvalued, you have to make it make sense. But I just think it's going to be an awful place to work at short term. And I think that people are going to leave or get fired, and it'll be an awful place to work. Long term, I think it can change dramatically, but short term, I mean, it's chaos. It's like every third person is verified. Verification means nothing. Official symbols now all over the place.
That makes no sense. They got to rethink that.
There's a lot going on.
No sense. My take is I'm definitely bullish on it. It's either gonna be amazing or it's gonna burn in flames. I mean, two ways to look at it. If Elon can do, Starlink and Tesla and SpaceX and all this other stuff, like he can run a social network. That's he can fix this so easily. That's one way to look at it. The other is those are completely different skill sets. I don't think, I don't know if you ever watched the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance.
I have not.
But Michael Jordan, most of it was super positive. He was the greatest. He was the most charismatic. He was just the best ever. He was the hardest worker. But then a lot of it was also he was a shitty teammate. He's not that nice of a guy. Mm-hmm. Same thing. I mean, everything about Kobe now is positive, but Kobe, was also probably not the nicest guy in terms of he rode his teammates super hard. And I think there is some level of that with greatness. And it from what I hear,
Jobs wasn't Tesla. Jobs wasn't a great guy to work. He was an asshole. I think it's not at all. It's pretty common. Yeah.
And Elon's like that. And is he a child and is he an asshole? Absolutely. But he's also built some crazy shit. So I think you're right. It's going to be bumpy short term. I think there's, I saw someone tweet about it and it was a really good take. They're he's running it like a startup. He's running it like an actual startup. And it is almost like a self-funded startup now. So it's just on a really big scale, but shit is going to break.
It's been around
they're going to launch stuff.
Years.
They're going to launch a product that's stupid and is doing really dumb stuff like the verification, but they're just going to keep testing. And by the way, if I'm trying to kind of end it on this note, take some lessons from it to your marketing, because he's just taking big swings. He's testing it. He's not really caring what people are thinking. Some of it's going to not work at all. A lot of terrible ideas. Some of it's going to work and has the potential to be huge.
Just don't lay off 50% of your team overnight via email.
And if you do, make it the right 50%.
That was very on brand for both of us, to be honest. The take at the end. Awesome. I think I got to get up to my kid.
I got a crying kid too, actually.
I feel like we should do one episode where we just have both of our kids just wreaking havoc in the background.
No one will want that.
Nobody wants to hear that. Okay, well, drop a comment if you've made it all the way to the end and you feel otherwise, and you feel like everyone would want to listen to my kid climbing on the table while I talk about my testes of the week. Please let me know.
How is this guy a dad? Yeah.
Nobody knows. Shrey asks me that on text every week. He's like, I literally get a text once a week.
He literally calls me
you're a dad?
Asks me how you're a dad.
Yeah, he's like, how is he a dad? How does this guy who gave him permission? How does that even work? Good questions.
Yeah. All right.
Cheers.
I'll see you guys next week.